Sorry to interrupt the wonderful networking that is already happening as we speak, but I'd like to make sure we have enough time to give the allotted speakers their time as well. So welcome to the keynote address for the 2024 St. Mary's College STEM Professional Development Workshop. This event tonight kicks off 2 days of professional development events at St. Mary's for St. Mary's STEM students here on campus. I'm Dr. Catherine White, a 2007 Math and Chem grad, a proud St. Mary's alumna, and the president of the SMC STEM Professional Development Committee. The Professional Development Committee here at St. Mary's was created in 2016 and was the brainchild of Erin Shambaugh, a 2008 St. Mary's Chem and 2009 Notre Dame Chemical Engineering alum. The idea arose from an urgent need that Erin identified when interviewing St. Mary's women for open positions in her company, GE. As an SMC alum, Erin knew that St. Mary's students were brilliant students, talented researchers, and exceptionally hard workers. But she found that SMC students were underperforming in key components of the interview process. Erin knew that SMC STEM students could do better, and importantly, she wanted to help them do better. So Erin reached out to her former professors, Dr. Tony Barstis, who looped in Dr. Joanne Snow, and they began brainstorming a way to address this performance gap that she found among St. Mary's students. So this is how the STEM Professional Development Committee was born. Today, the Professional Development Committee is comprised of highly dedicated St. Mary's students, St. Mary's alumna, and St. Mary's faculty, all working together to create professional development programs tailored for students in STEM. Through our programming, St. Mary's students receive career guidance, networking opportunities, resume feedback, interview feedback, and build essential skills for success in STEM. Our virtual and in-person professional development workshops feature real-world scenarios, hands-on training, and iterative skill building that has been shown to better prepare students for the next stage of their careers. And our work revealing the hidden curriculum for success in a STEM career is necessary for increasing the representation of women in STEM. Despite receiving over 50% of all STEM bachelor's degrees, women still make up under 1/3, or 28%, of the STEM workforce. Our mission is to empower women in STEM and ensure that St. Mary's students are among the leaders of the next generation of STEM superstars. So since 2017, we've had over 650 St. Mary's students participate in our events. How many of you in the audience have participated in a STEM PDW event in the past? Ooh, I like it. Some hands. And how many are participating in your first professional development event tonight or tomorrow? Great, even better. So former participants in the PDW have said these interactions and experiences cannot be taught in a class, but in some ways are more useful than the skills we learn for our degrees. I can Google the basics of interviewing or negotiating, but hearing from St. Mary's alumna was worth hours of research. It was great to be able to ask questions and get immediate answers from women who have been where I am now. Every event we host brings alumna and students together. This is a unique component of our professional development programming here at St. Mary's. We've had over 100 SMC STEM alumna participate in our events and give back to the STEM community, to the SMC community, by providing essential contributions of time and talent to our STEM students. So this year, I'm proud to say that we're hosting several alumna this weekend who actually participated in the PDW as students and are now returning to give back as alumni mentors. And so this is clear evidence that St. Mary's alumna love engaging with current students around our shared goals, our shared interests, and our shared passions. So I hope you students will take advantage of that in the future. We are so grateful to our alumni volunteers and the many alumni here tonight. So if you are a STEM alum, maybe you could stand up, raise your hand, say hi. Students, please join me in thanking these alum for coming to campus. And finally, the STEM professional development we do here at St. Mary's is special, and it is vital, and it is year-round. So if any alumni, friends, or family would like to support our efforts, I encourage you to consider designating your St. Mary's donation to the PDW. This can easily be done by indicating Professional Development Fund or the Barstis Snow Fund with your donation. Also, if you're an SMC alumna, we always welcome contributions of time and talent, the most valuable resource when it comes to helping our students. So do consider volunteering for our event via our website. So now for the fun stuff for the evening. Tonight, we kick off the professional development workshop with a keynote event. You'll first hear from our 2024 Early Career Awardee, Yeilyn Colón, 2015 Chem and 2016 CHEG alum, who is the Quality Control Manager for Ascent Chemicals, a contract manufacturing company. The keynote talk this evening will be given by our 2024 Shannon Executive Scholar and Keynote Speaker Awardee, Patricia Watson, a 1988 math alum who is the Executive Vice President and Chief Technology Officer for NCR at Laos, the world leader in financial services, including point-of-sale hardware and software. So those little things that you use to spend all your money, right? So following the keynote address, we'll have time for a Q&A with both of the guest speakers, so please hold your questions until the end when you can ask both of them. All right, so now it is my pleasure to introduce our first speaker of the evening, the 2024 Early Career Awardee, Yeilyn Colón. Yeilyn graduated from SMC in 2015 with a BS in chemistry and a math minor, then completed her BS in chemical engineering in 2016. I am going to talk a little more, so just 1 second. She's ready to go. So she's currently enrolled in an MBA program, so continuing her education at the Inter-American University of Puerto Rico. After graduating, Yeilyn was the first employee at Hazel Technologies, Inc., which was an agricultural startup based in Chicago, and really one of the first employees. The light outlets didn't even work yet. So she helped build Hazel from the seed stage to what is now a fast-growing leader in the agricultural technology. And so currently, as I mentioned, she is the Quality Control Manager at Ascent Chemicals. Please join me in welcoming Yeilyn to the stage.
I'm just going to stand over here so you guys can see me. This podium's too tall. Alrighty, well, thank you guys for the honor of standing here and talking to you. Can you hear me? Am I close enough to the mic? All right, let's do that. Okay, so I'll start a little bit with what you guys heard. It's just my educational background. SMC 2015, Notre Dame 2016, dual degree chemistry and chemical engineering. And so before I started working at Ascent Chemicals, I was at Hazel Technologies in Chicago. And, I joined Ascent Chemicals in 2022. So I'll just start with something really basic here. How many of you consider yourselves to be perfectionists or have been raised to be a perfectionist? Okay, fun. All right. So the fun thing about being a perfectionist is, a lot of times you're really good at what you do. You perform very well. But the issue that comes with that is that you tend to have issues with confidence at several points because confidence comes from the inside and nobody can give it to you. It's something that you just have to create for yourself. And for me, gaining confidence in the workplace and battling imposter syndrome was one of the most difficult things that I had to deal with, especially in leadership positions in rooms full of men who were much older than me. I was focused on what I didn't know and not focused on what I did know, my skill set, my education, my research, the things that I was good at, because I was so gosh darn perfectionist that it was never good enough. And I didn't want to just start making decisions based on what other people thought, based on other people's judgments. so that I could not make those decisions based on what other people. I created what to me is a true north. And that true north is what I'm trying to present here for you guys. I'll see in a couple of minutes. And it's my 4 tenets for managing people and enterprises. So we'll start with some basics. 2020, let's just start off at 2020. I was at Hazel Technologies. I was managing a group of 3 people, well, with myself included. That's Brianna, and that's Nick over there. And this was our 2020 party before everything went COVID, right? So this team was also made up of perfectionists, very, very good chemists, really, really dedicated people, hardworking. They knew exactly what they were doing, how to do it. I mean, we built this company together. But we were handling way too much. And it shames me to say that at one point, that perfectionism led to Brianna walking into a meeting with me, and she said, I need help. There's just too much. We need more people. I can't keep taking all of this work on my own. And I wish that I had seen that sooner. So my first tenet is reasonable expectations. Let's just start off there. So when you develop reasonable expectations for yourself and for your team members, you start off with confidence. There is nothing more insecure in the workplace than someone who takes on way more work that they can handle and then fail at all of it. You're better off saying no to this, yes to that, give me 3 weeks and we'll talk about X or Y or Z. Because taking on way too much work, it's not good for you. It's not good for you mentally. It's not good for you physically. It's not good for your family, right? Reasonable expectations help you establish work-life balance. You get to go home and see your family. You get to see your friends. You get to travel. Life is not all about work. It really isn't. You get to ask for help. When you establish reasonable expectations, you understand when is the point that you have reached your limit. Have the humility to say, I have reached a limit and therefore I need help. So instead of throwing yourself at a problem, it's okay to have limitations. You can stop and say, all right, this is the point. I need help. And there's a lot of power that comes with doing that. And then there's also the point at which you can understand that perhaps you're jumping a little too high for the same carrot. So it plays a big part in equality as well. When you have reasonable expectations for yourself, you understand when you're putting way too much effort for a given position or a given salary range, and that's more than perhaps is expected of other colleagues. It helps you meter yourself, and therefore either ask for more money or push for that promotion. So let's move on a little bit in this timeline, right? Okay, we're done with Hazel. Now we move on to 2022. I'm at Ascent Chemicals. I joined the company as the quality manager at Ascent, and I'm in this team of people, engineers, other lab technicians, people who have been there for however many years. And I'm the new kid on the block, the youngest manager in the entire operations group, and the only woman. And the issue starts becoming when I'm trying to set certain expectations for resources that I need for my team, right? One of the issues that my team was having is that they were getting overworked, right? This is a commonplace issue in most companies. There'll be teams that are just doing way too much work for what they can do, right? And then they either feel burnt out or underpaid. So that's when I started asking for more resources. But I started getting pushback from some of my colleagues, some of my more tenured colleagues. And this is when I move on to my next tenet, mutually beneficial agreements. How do you get these colleagues who don't necessarily agree with you, how do you get them to help you? A lot of times, all you have to do is ask nicely, and that's great. But sometimes that's not enough. When you use mutually beneficial agreements, you create win-win situations. You have to be clever to do that. But when you create these win-win situations between you and your colleagues, you're creating these positive reinforcements that whenever you're talking with someone, you're not just getting something from them, they're gonna gain something too. You make friends, not enemies. You're not just out there getting something from someone else. They're always also benefiting. So it's great for dealing with customers, and it's great for dealing with colleagues who might be a little bit more stubborn. And it's also great when it helps you advocate for yourself. It gives you a basis, it gives you a voice. There were several occasions in which just, like, I want to change a procedure, but I'm not the one who changes the procedure, the engineers do. I have some part of that, but it's not really my purview. So how can I ask this colleague who does not report to me, who is not part of my department, who really doesn't have to do anything for me, how can I have this person help me out here so that my people feel like their work has more purpose? It's just, oop, it did the thing. Can I? Nope. I'm gonna let you do the clicker thing. Great. So, okay, great. So, as long as you're creating environments where people feel like it's great that you're talking to them, that they're gonna benefit too from your conversations, and you have these mutually beneficial agreements, you're way more likely to get farther in the things that you are asking to do. Next part in the timeline. Okay. So we're done with mutually beneficial agreements. Let me see. Sorry, guys. I forgot what was left in my notes. This is what happens when you get nervous. Okay. Now I remember. This is a good one. This is a good story. Okay. So I have this team. I have this resources. Things are going well. Retention is increasing. We're doing well, right? We're not quite there yet, but we're doing well. At one point, we were still recruiting. The lab wasn't fully staffed yet. And one employee was audibly complaining that the lab was not fully staffed yet and that they were still overworked, right? It was a work in progress, but they were complaining. So my supervisor at the time pulled me aside and he said, well, it's a concern that this person is complaining about this recruitment issue because we are actively recruiting. Now, here's the kicker. We weren't actively recruiting, not anymore. There was a hiring freeze. A couple of days prior, he had told me that there was a hiring freeze. And then now he's telling me to tell these folks that we are actively recruiting. Big no-no. So I told them, no, I can't do this. I can't tell these folks that we are actively recruiting. If I have to tell them the bad news that there's a hiring freeze and they're gonna have to hold on a little longer, okay, I can do that. But I will not lie to them. I'm not gonna lie to them. So that leads me to my next tenet, integrity. Use your moral compass to guide you to the right decisions. If it doesn't feel right, it's probably not right. Be consistent in your actions and your words. Don't let other people influence your decisions. If you agree that something that someone says is right, great. If you don't, figure out why that is. And if needed, fuck the system. Definitely hold yourself accountable, right? And again, it also takes a little bit of humility to understand when we've made a mistake. This is a moving target. as we continue to know ourselves a little further, we know where we stand on certain things, and you will learn a lot about yourself as you go along. But you have to be honest with yourself, and when you may have made a mistake, so hold yourself accountable so that way you don't make it the next time. And so I'm pretty sure I'm almost out of time here or over, so I'm just going to click through the next one. My last one is balance, and I would say that this is by far the hardest tenet to abide by. It takes a lot of growth. It takes a lot of growth to get here. It is most definitely a moving target. I can't say I do this one too great all the time, but the point is that you try, right? So in the spirit of balance, here's my summary, right? Mutually beneficial agreements, reasonable expectations, balance, and integrity. Okay, in the spirit of balance, I shall end this presentation with a picture of my cat, because we always like a little bit of play with our work. So this is the Ascent team. That's my new supervisor, because the other one, this is my new supervisor, Mark. He's great. And this is my cat. So thank you.
Awesome. And again, we will have time for questions with both of the speakers at the end of the night. It's now my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Patty Watson. Patty Watson is also the 2024 Shannon Executive Scholar. That honor from the Development Office allows Patty to interact with students in the classroom and in informal conversations throughout the day-to-day. So some of you in the audience might have had Patty in one of your classes today. Patty holds a bachelor's degree in mathematics from St. Mary's and an MBA from the University of Dayton. She's now the Executive Vice President and Chief Technology Officer of NCR. And she joined NCR in 2022 to lead the information and technology team and oversee their global technology vision and roadmap. She also chairs the NCR's Technology Leadership Council, and they have a goal of investing in NCR's world-class technology to enable 24/7, 365 delivery of highly available, secure, and market-leading products, like those checkouts that you use. So before joining NCR, Patty served as the president of Cloud Corporation and Intrado Corp for 2 years, where she led the business through private equity sale processes. And she is the former senior executive vice president and chief information officer of Total System Services, or TSYS. And she had that role from 2015 to 2019. So she's had a lot of leadership positions across a lot of global and international companies. She also served as the global vice president and global chief information officer for the Brinks Company, and she worked with Bank of America prior to that. In addition, Patty began her career with 10 years of service in the United States Air Force as an executive staff officer, flight commander, program manager, and director of operations. So please join me in welcoming Patty to the stage.
Hello, everybody. It's great to be here, and I have to tell you, it's kind of shocking to be here for me, especially to be asked to be the Shannon Scholar. I was telling some of the students in the probability class earlier that I was not a very good student. And it's true. I actually, and I told them this, and I have it with me for proof. This is my transcript. Like back in the day, they printed it out on paper, and I actually have the stamp from the college to say it's official. Okay, well, I'm embarrassed to show you what's on here, but I'll tell you a story about this building and Sister Miriam. Sister Miriam, I loved. She was a little intimidating, but Sister Miriam called me into her office my freshman year, and she said, Patricia, she called me by my first name, Patricia, I looked at your SAT scores, and I've been looking at your grades, and you are not living up to your full potential. And I said, yep. I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, I know. And I felt really, really bad. So if she was here right now, I'd want to tell her, I really did make something of myself. And it's my 19-year-old daughter said, Mom, make sure you tell them about grades aren't everything. So I just checked that box for all of you. Grades are important, but they are not everything, and I am living proof. So today I want to talk to you about myself a little bit. I'm going to give you a brief overview of who I am as a person, share some fun stories, and then I'm going to share with you some things that I talked to my interns about this summer, and I asked them, okay, if you were hearing me speak, what would you want me to talk about? I asked my daughter, Elizabeth, who's right here, my daughter Jenna, who's 19, and I'll talk a little bit more about them in a minute, but hopefully you like what I have to say. Again, happy to be here. Hard to believe 40 years ago, I showed up at St. Mary's, 1984. I'm old, I know, but super, super happy to be here. So I always like to start with this picture. What's most important to me? This is what's most important to me. This is my family. I have 5 kids. I have an amazing husband, and I'm going to talk a little bit about them, but in life, for me, what's been the true measure of success is having these 5 kids turn out to be contributing members of society, and they all are, which is good. And so I'll talk a little bit about them. This is my husband, Paul. I talked earlier about him, a little bit about Paul. He was salutatorian of his high school. He was top 10% of his class at the Air Force Academy. He's a captain at Southwest Airlines. But he has been my life partner, my biggest supporter. And honestly, the reason that I'm like right here now. This is a picture of us from October when my company, NCR Atleos, we broke NCR into 2, and we got to go to the New York Stock Exchange and ring the bell, and so he was there with me by my side. But he's also the person that when we had kids, we decided that one of us needed to be home. And when you get to a point in your career, you know, somebody's got to take the lead and somebody's got to sit in the back. And we sat down, and even though my husband, who's much smarter than I am, we decided that, and he decided that it would be him that would sit back. And so my husband, so remember, top 10% at the Air Force Academy, captain of Southwest Airlines, he stopped working. He'd work maybe 2 days a month, and he was the one that drove the kids around, took them to their appointments. He's the one that grocery shopped. He cooked, right? Yeah, he did all the things that, you know, the traditional mom would do. And so, you know, one of my best pieces of advice to all of you, if you decide to get married, make sure you pick a good partner, your equal, and someone that will always be there to support you, because honestly, he's the reason why I've been able to do what I've done. I told you that my family is important. I have 5 kids. Brandon's our oldest. He's serving in the Army. Elizabeth here is also a 2017 grad of St. Mary's. So she's back here with me. I have to tell you a funny story about Lizzie. When she was little, she was like 4 or 5 years old. She said, "Mommy, I am not going to do what you do when I grow up because you work too much." And so Elizabeth, I hate to tell you this, but you are turning out to be like your mother. Yeah. Okay, let's just get the record straight. Okay, my middle son, Nathan. You're going to hear a lot about Nathan. Nathan has Down syndrome. He is literally the nucleus of our family, and he is calling me right now. He's calling me because I ordered him Chick-fil-A tonight, and he's probably calling to bug me and ask me where's his Chick-fil-A. Can you text your brother and tell him? And then my twins, Jenna and Jason. Jenna is a sophomore at Auburn University. She's a pre-vet. Good God, Nathan, please, let's go. She's a pre-vet major, and her twin brother, Jason, is just graduated with his associate's degree in welding technology and is off to learn how to weld pipe so he can be the heart of America and be part of the pipeline. So I grew up in a middle-class family. My dad was in the Army, so where's my friend that grew up in the military? That we used to say we had no home. This is my mom and dad. Dad was in the Army, 27 and a half years. Mom was a nurse. Had one brother. I was born in Japan, lived all over the world, moved every 2 to 3 years. So when you ask me where I'm from, I'd say nowhere. Now I'm a Texan. And so since I lived there since 1999, moving every so often really made me enjoy change. And it also made me appreciate diversity. And it's why one of my big passions is diversity. I said I was born in Japan. That's me in the middle. And you can see, I'm the only one there with blonde hair and blue eyes. This is one of my favorite pictures because it represents something that I'm passionate about, which is making sure that everyone feels included and advocating for all people, especially women, people in the military, and people with intellectual disabilities. This is my dad. My dad was my hero. He was the one that I joke and say I was raised in a leadership laboratory. Literally, I was. I've got some great stories about accountability, which you'll see in a minute. It's just my favorite word. But he taught me about accountability. He taught me to be a good leader. When I was in college here, I went back to Fort Leonard Wood. He was the commander of an evacuation hospital. And there were literally grown men in tears because my father was leaving. And I remember thinking, I want to be just like that. I want people to love working with me. And I think that's what's happened because I have people that seem to follow me wherever I go. But that was, it was one of my early vows. I'm going to be just like my dad. This is my grandmother. My dad was actually deployed, so my mom and my grandmother dropped me off here at St. Mary's. I remember bawling my eyes out, and then I met some friends, and we went out, and my first night here, we didn't get in until 2 in the morning. So I cried, but I got over it really quick. My grandma had 8 boys. She didn't drive a car ever in her whole life. But she is the strongest woman that I ever met. And I have to thank my grandma because one of the things she did nonstop was bugged me about washing hands. So when COVID came around, I had no problems because I was always washing my hands anyway. So thank you, Grandma. I'm forever grateful to her for all of she really, really made me feel loved and was just such a great woman role model for me. When I graduated high school, this was actually me being commissioned over at Notre Dame. I don't even know if the pink building's still there, in the old ROTC building. I had an Army and an Air Force ROTC scholarship, and I always tell people that I took the Air Force scholarship because I look better in blue than green. I do look better in blue than green, but that's not why I did it. My dad, who was in the Army, actually told me that the Air Force was better for their people, and so hence I went into the military. I was the only St. Mary's graduate that was in ROTC from my class, so it was interesting. I was on a full scholarship, but I feel like it really gave me the best of all worlds because I got to be here with a bunch of amazing women, and I also had the opportunity to be part of Notre Dame and have a much bigger friend group too. Speaking of St. Mary's, these are my best friends. We still get together. We have a group chat going, and I met them all here. These are lifelong friends. You will meet people here that you will be friends with probably till the day you die. And I can tell you these women have been with me through thick and thin, through all kinds of things, but they're true friends. And that's one of the big benefits of being here at St. Mary's is you meet a bunch of amazing women. I told the probability class earlier today, please relish it, because I'm telling you it's coming to an end. You're soon going to be, if you're in STEM, you are going to be surrounded by men, period. And so enjoy it now, build those friendships, they'll be lifelong friends. When I graduated, I joined the military. I spent almost 10 years. My first assignment was in California. Then I went to Ohio, and I went to Alabama. That was my last assignment. And I really had my eyes open to what it was like living in a man's world. I'll tell you a story about, I was a young lieutenant. I did project management in the Air Force, and I was traveling around the world installing a new way to control satellites. And so I went to New Hampshire, I went to Thule, Greenland, and I went to Oakhanger, England. And when I was in Oakhanger, I was in charge. I was probably 24. So I think I was a second lieutenant, maybe first lieutenant. And the contractor wasn't showing up on time. We were behind schedule. And I was very, I'm in charge. Like, what's going on here? Why are you not here? Giving me, the person supposed to doing the work, giving them some feedback about what they needed to do better. And I had a captain, a man, actually pull me into his office. And he said, they wouldn't have put somebody like you here in this job. And I looked at him like, what in the world are you talking about? And he said, well, because you're a woman. And I looked at him and I said, okay, their prime minister is a woman. Margaret Thatcher was the prime minister. But as I looked around the satellite tracking facility, the only woman that I saw was the woman that was like basically keeping the facility clean. So welcome to the world of being in technology or STEM. Just know that hopefully it's better for you all. I think it's better for you all, but it's hard. And I'll talk a little bit about that. During my last assignment, I was supposed to go to the Pentagon. And one thing about the military is you don't control like where you go. They tell you where you're going. I had 2 small kids at the time. And all of a sudden, my assignment to the Pentagon got canceled. And I got really mad. And I was like, what? What do you mean? And I think it was kind of the, Patty, you have no control over what you're going to do or where you're going. I have 2 small kids. And so I was forced to think about my life and think about what I should do, what was best for my family, what was best for me. I didn't know anything but the military, but I decided to go out and see what corporate world was all about. So I went out, I interviewed with 10 different companies like GE, Procter & Gamble, Price Waterhouse, Ford, Bank of America, went through a search firm that specialized in military people. And surprisingly, every single company that I interviewed with asked me to come back for a second interview. So I was shocked that my skills that I had developed here at St. Mary's and in the military were so valuable. And so I made the tough decision to leave the military, and I traded my uniform for a suit. This is my first executive photo here on the left, and this is my recent picture here on the right. You can see the different in age, I think. But I had no clue what corporate America was like. This is my career on a page. You heard about it earlier. These are all the places I've worked. The one thing you didn't hear is that I also have served on 3 different companies' boards. So I'm on the board of directors. I was on the board of directors of USAA Bank. I was on the board of directors of Texas Capital Bank in Dallas. And I'm still on the board of a company out of Milwaukee called Rockwell Automation. And I chair the compensation committee. And if you don't know what a board of directors does, they're responsible for governance of a company. Now, Rockwell is Fortune 500. They're a $9 billion company. And you know, it's a big deal for a woman to be able to join a board, because you're basically overseeing what the company does. The CEO, you make decisions about their compensation, the executive compensation, and it's been really an honor to be able to do not just the jobs that I've had, but also to serve on several companies' boards. So in a nutshell, that's me. That's how I got here. And now I'm going to share with you, and I'm going to share some of the same things you did. So hopefully you're paying attention. These are the things what I wish that I knew when I was your age. First, in the beginning of your career, you must become an expert in something. And Elizabeth has heard this. She's making a face at me. You have to be. Don't skip around. You need to do what you're asked. You need to work hard. And you need to specialize in the first 5 years. I tell you that because if you want to do something different, the time to do it is probably about 5 years into your career. If you want to go out and do something different, one of my big lessons learned was I stayed in technology much too long. When I got to Brinks, I was 25 years into my career. The CEO came to me and said, I can't believe that I'm going to say this to my CIO, but you could be the CEO here. And to be a CEO, you have to have something called a profit-loss center experience, meaning you've run a business before. If you want to know why there aren't many women CEOs, it's because women typically aren't in jobs where they have experience managing a P&L. And so if that's something you ever think about, I hope you remember this conversation. Specialize early, but then look for the opportunity to have responsibility for a P&L, because it opens up doors to get to a much higher executive level, even to the CEO role. Always have a goal in mind. You aren't going to know what you want to do at your age, but start thinking about it. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I was telling the same probability class today, my career's been like a stair step. I actually have a picture at the end of it about my career. I drew it as a runway. And at every step along the way, I set a goal, and I figured out how to achieve it. Okay, when I was young, I wanted to be a mom, and I wanted to be just like my dad. It wasn't until I was in the military that I saw a woman 2-star general, General Leslie Kenney, one of the first generals in the military, female generals. And I heard her talking about her career, and I thought, I see a lot of women. They're not married. They don't have kids. All they have in their career is their career. I'm not going to be like that. I am going to, this is how I define doing it all. I'm going to have a great marriage. I'm going to have kids. And I'm going to have an incredible career. I decided that when I was probably 3 years into the military. And the interesting thing is, I was able to talk to General Kenney a couple months ago, and I told her what a profound impact that meeting had on my life. It was really when I decided I was going to do whatever it took, to achieve my goals. I say it was my all because each of you are going to have to decide what doing it all means to you. It's going to mean something different to each and every one of you. If you don't want to get married, that's fine. If you don't want to have kids, that's fine. If you want to do everything that I did, that's fine too. You can do it all, and don't let anyone tell you that you can't. My best career advice is, being the best isn't being the best. You have to take people with you. Ask questions instead of always having the answer. I was one, I may not have had great grades, but I come to solutions pretty quickly, and I had a little boss one time set me down and say, Patty, you're so good at what you do. She drew a little picture of me at the top of a hill with a flag, and she said, that's you at the top of the hill. Look at all these little stick figures at the bottom of the hill. What you need to do is you need to bring them with you. And that was a big learning for me. And when I realized that being the best wasn't being the best, and setting myself apart wasn't really what you want to do, I started bringing people with me, and that's really when my career took off. So doing it all, you define it. You can do it all, but you can't do it alone. You have to have somebody that supports you, whether it's your family, your friends, a partner, a spouse. You can do it all. You just can't do it alone. Now, networking. When I was in Bank of America, I was in an accelerated development program, and I went into the CIO's office, and he said to me, Patty Watson, I did not know who you were until I saw your name on my paper, and you better start meeting people and getting out of your little cubicle or office and get to know people. And I didn't realize at the time the power of networking, but it's absolutely critical. I used to make people that work for me put down 5 people that they were going to go meet that year, because truly the key to success is networking. I used to think that if I just sat in my office or my cubicle and I did a great job, someone was going to come and tap me on the shoulder and tell me, you are so great and we're going to promote you. That is not how it works. No. It is about telling people what you want, and as women, we don't do that enough. I learned this in a development program. Tell people what you want, have the performance to justify it, and that's really where opportunities come from. I had someone that I chose as a mentor. He was in the Air Force. He had been at Bank of America. I decided to go meet him and started talking to him about what I wanted to do next. I wanted to get promoted to an SVP. I wanted to expand my responsibilities. And we had a great connection because we had common, we both served in the military, and we're now at the bank. And I didn't know this, but he actually reached out to my boss's boss and said, hey, I have a position and I want to hire Patty for it. This is honest to God, true story. So my boss's boss, a woman, calls me. Her name is Pam, and she says, Patty, Bill Conroy just called me. He wants to hire you. So I figured if he's going to hire you, I better offer you a promotion. So I have 2 jobs I want you to consider. And she gave me 2 job offers. I chose one, and it was my first executive position. This is how it works. Make sure that people know who you are, what you're capable of, and what you want. You've got to be an advocate for yourself. I happened to be at TSIS. I was the first woman at the C-level. Okay, I showed up in 2015. First woman at the C-level. This is a $4 billion company. I think I mentioned my dad raised me to believe I could do anything that I believed was possible. And I remember I had been there probably a week, and a woman comes up to me. She had heard me say that. My dad raised me to be anything I wanted to be.
And she looked at me and she had tears in her eyes. And she said, I am so happy you're here. We have waited so long to have a woman at the top. I was the only diversity, by the way. It was me and all white, older men, and I love them all dearly. But I became the poster child for diversity at my company. And, I say that because it's always been something I'm very passionate about. I will say that being here at St. Mary's, being surrounded by a bunch of women, really helped make me courageous and gave me the ability to speak the truth. And so I'm not afraid to do anything. And I really do believe that comes from my upbringing and from being here at St. Mary's. And it's going to be very important for all of you to speak the truth and be courageous. I talked to you about my son, Nathan. So Nathan, we decided when he was born, he had Down syndrome. We decided he was going to be educated just like all of our other kids. Well, guess what? None of our other kids had, at our school district, kids with special needs were sent into a special classroom. They weren't integrated with typical kids. And I remember we enrolled Nathan in a regular Montessori school, and then we enrolled him in regular kindergarten. And there are laws out there. We knew all the laws. We learned them all in preparation for a fight. We knew it was going to be a fight. And so we put him in kindergarten. Of course, the first semester of school, they came to us and said, he really needs to be in the special classroom. And we said, no, he doesn't. You need to learn how to interact with him. And it's not just because of Nathan, it's for all the kids in the classroom, because they're going to learn and grow being around someone that's different. So we hired an attorney, and I vowed I would spend every last penny I had to make sure that my son was included. We filed something called due process. It's like court. And long story short, we won. Our son was the first child with Down syndrome to be fully included in his school. They actually got rid of the special classroom in his school, and we set a precedent so that other children behind him were able to be fully included. And that is really where I say being accountable is one of my most favorite words. I'll talk about that in a second. So good books to read. I have two of them. The first is How to Win Friends and Influence People. You talked about it. As you move up in your career, influence becomes critically important. Being able to influence outside of your span of control, get this book. I had one of my bosses tell me to read it. He told me, not every battle's worth a fight, Patty. You need to learn how to influence. And I recommend this book all the time to people. Critical learnings, learn people's names, learn what motivates them. It's all on the slide. Get the book. It's an easy read. The second book that I recommend is The Oz Principle, and this is the one about accountability. And the whole premise of the book is that our experiences impact our beliefs, which influences our actions, which generates results. Like I said, my father raised me to believe I could do everything that I wanted to do, and I've lived my life that way. There's nothing that I haven't been able to accomplish. And so I encourage you to read this book. It talks a lot about living above the line and below the line. Living above the line is like taking ownership of things and just getting it done. Living below the line is blaming, pointing fingers, making excuses. Be accountable. Be one of those people that when you say you're going to do something, you do it. And that's something that has been, I think, one of the keys to my success. I won't say it if I don't think I can make it happen. And I'm telling you, there are a lot of people in this world that like to talk a lot of talk, but they don't accomplish anything. Learn what you love. Learn what you love doing, what makes you happy. Don't think about a job. Think about what it is that you like doing. I joke and say, what makes you want to jump out of bed and go into work? That's what you need to figure out. Because when you do figure that out, that's how you're going to find success. For me, it's always been around people, leading people and developing large groups of people. And I learned my purpose is to really make a difference in everything I do, to transform and to grow. And most of my career, I have done this. So I always say, whatever you do in life, make sure you're passionate about it, because where you have passion, that's really where you will find success. This is an important one, and this is one that really came from being here. I was raised Catholic, but this was the first time in my life where I actually chose to be Catholic. And I don't know if they still do it here, but we used to all go to Mass together. We'd go to Mass in Regina, we'd go over to Notre Dame in the dorms, and it really became a social thing. And the reason I tell you that this is important, and I don't care whether you're Catholic or not, just believe in something bigger than yourself, because life is hard. It's really hard. You're going to go through ups and downs, and you're going to need to be able to unload all those troubles on someone else. I know, some of you are probably struggling today, whether it's with school or whatever. Develop your faith. I promise you it's going to come in handy. When I was 12 weeks pregnant with Nathan, Lizzie had Fifth disease, and that puts you into high-risk pregnancy. So I went in for my ultrasound, and the technician left the room and went to get the doctor. And the doctor came back and basically told me that Nathan was going to die. He said he had Chiari-2 malformation. He had I can't remember what it was, but I wrote it down. I was in shock. I was by myself. The first place I went after stopping to get my husband pulled from his trip was to my church. And, I can tell you that that was a really hard time in my life. And now that I look back, it was actually a blessing, because I know that Nathan was sent to us because I was meant to be, and my husband, we were meant to be an advocate for people with disabilities. So I have served on the Texas Governor's Committee for People with Disabilities, Bank of America, and at TSIS, I started 2 programs for hiring people with disabilities. And honestly, Nathan, I think Lizzie probably agree, he's made us better people. And at the time, I kept thinking, why in the world me? But now I know. I was sent here to do this, to help people with disabilities. I don't know that we have time for this. It's a video around Project Search, maybe just a few minutes. I don't know how we start it. This is one of the programs that I started at TSIS, and someone asked me earlier today, what am I most proud of? This is it. Being in a position where I can make a difference for people. Is there a way to do it? No? Okay. It's okay. We'll skip it. I'm sorry. Can you go to, whoops. Okay. Google Project Search TSYS. I guarantee you will cry. I cry every time I see it. Okay, keep things in perspective. The older you get,
the more experiences you have. And there's something to be said about, with age comes wisdom. I really think it's experiences. So push yourself to try things that are different, challenge yourself to learn new things and have new experiences. People ask me why I'm so calm at work. Honestly, it has to do with Nathan. When you've given your 6-day-old child over to a surgeon for heart surgery, or your 6-month-old for open heart surgery, or your 10-year-old for open heart surgery again, it puts everything in perspective. Okay, I'm almost done. My final points. Imposter syndrome. It is real. It's really real. Don't let it get the best of you. You deserve to be where you are. Your ideas are valuable. Your perspectives are essential. And your contributions will leave an indelible mark on this world. Guilt. This is a woman thing. Women feel guilt when we're at work because we're not with our family. And when we're with our family, we feel guilty because we're not at work. Again, don't let it weigh you down. Keep doing your best. You don't have to be a man. I had to put Taylor in here. Did any of you go to the Era store? Okay, I did. I wasn't a Taylor Swift fan until I went to the store. Now I love her. So I just had to include her in this. So this is, her singing If I Were a Man. But this is a really important picture. In November, I went to Seattle to Microsoft. Like, you all think Microsoft is one of the most diverse companies in the world, right? Okay, look. As I was taking the picture, I said, the rose amongst the thorns. We were at Microsoft all day long. I didn't see any other women. It was just me. This is what it's like to be in STEM, just so you know. Okay. Finally, always remember, we all have this plan and everything's going to go perfect. It's not going to go perfect. It's not. So throw that out the window. What I will tell you is life is full of ups and downs. You don't realize it at the time, but I guarantee you when things happen that you think are the worst thing in the world, you will look back years later and you will understand why. And that's because our plans and God's plans are very different. And that's why this faith is so important, is trust that God's plan is much better than yours. Just know that it's going to take you through. You're going to fall in the water, fall off the bridge. You're going to go through many storms. I often imagine, my life. What would it be like if I'd made different decisions about my career, about my family? But I know that I'm here doing what I do because that's what God put me here to do. And I do believe he puts us all on this earth for a purpose. You just have to figure out what that is. Let me close by saying congratulations to all of you. You don't know it now, probably, because I don't think I did, but you are in a very special place. I hope that you enjoyed my story. And here's my picture of my life, the runway of life, and you'll see at the end, this is my tombstone. And it says on it, she made a difference. Thank you.
Yeah, you guys can just have a seat in the squares. Yeah. Can you turn off the projector? Oh, maybe I have. Awesome. All right. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. So we have some time for questions. I can get us started, but is there any burning question that people want to know right now? All right. So, there is one. Yes.
Do you have any advice for, I'm eventually going to commission in the Marine Corps and ROTC as well. Do you have any advice for like dealing with men in that type of male-dominated environment? Especially like when there's pushback and just how to approach a situation when there's conflict.
Is it on? Okay. So in the military, yes, it's definitely a man's world. I think for all of you, you're going to find you will be in positions where you're the only woman in the room. If you are in science, technology, engineering, math, military. And I think that's why it's important, being here, that you learn to have courage. Because courage is what's going to enable you to raise your voice when there are others in the room that may want you to be quiet. I think it's just something you have to get comfortable with, and it's going to be a reality, though. My dad said to me something really interesting when I was young. I've always remembered it. He said, "You have to respect someone's rank," and this is talking about the military, but you don't have to respect the person. And so I've always said, when I come into a new role, I want to earn the respect of the people that work for me and the people that I work with. And I think a big key to that is about caring about the people and building relationships with people, because what I found is when you have those relationships with people, it enables you to have conflict. It's easier to have conflict, and it's easier to raise your voice, be heard when maybe you're feeling like no one wants to hear what you have to say. Do you have anything to add to that?
I would say in general, just find your peace. I think that's the biggest thing. Actually, one of my employees is a former Marine Corps. He served for like 15 years, I think. And he had a couple of colleagues who were women. He had a couple of funny stories about all the crazy stuff they do, because camaraderie is a big deal. A lot of times we worry about respect, about earning the respect of those around us, and I think you can chime in here, but when you're in Afghanistan with your colleagues in the Marine Corps, that camaraderie can save your life. And that comes when your colleagues respect you. But one of the most important ways to get and earn that respect is by having your own peace. Just know that you have a right to exist in a space. Whatever that looks like, you have a right, not a privilege, the right to exist in a space as you are. And it's a hard thing to conceptualize. It's really hard we always reduce ourselves. We come up with some sort of reduced version of ourselves so that other people can like us. But we're the first people that we need to convince that we have a right to exist in a certain space. And the fact that we exist differently within that space means that we get to make that space wider, more comprehensive, just better rounded. You really would be adding something as a woman in that space. And I think that's important. There's a lot of value that comes with that additional perspective. And sooner or later, if your colleagues are halfway decent people, they will realize it too.
Great. In the back?
So, for context, I've grown up as a military brat. My dad's in the Army, and something that even now, going to college for 4 years in one place, something that's always scared me
Yeah, when I was leaving the military and I interviewed with all those companies, one of the reasons that I chose Bank of America was it was a company that was global. There were over 300,000 people in it. And I knew enough about myself to know that I like change. I actually, you probably get this too, like you get this itch. It's like a feeling, like I've got to do something different, whether it's moving or a change in jobs. And that's one of the big benefits of being in a big company is you can traverse it in different roles. So I did every 18 to 24 months, the bank, you know, I didn't do it myself. You get to a point in your career where they start moving you based on developing you and growing you, at least the good companies. And so my advice is find a company that gives you kind of that ability to move, whether it's move locations or move jobs. And you know, you'll learn to appreciate, there are some advantages to being in one place for a long time, like having the same doctor. Which I know like you don't get ever to see the same doctor, but yeah, I think that's my best advice for that. But I totally get you. Been there.
Great. I think, was there one over here? No. All right, so I'll ask a question. I think one of the things that, two things struck me from both of your talks. One is this kind of fact of being very visible as the only woman in the management team or the only woman in the C-suite. But another kind of component that maybe you could comment a little bit on is the way in which you advocate for yourself versus advocating for others in those environments. It kind of touches on maybe some things that we already talked about, but do you have any tips or tricks for the students on how they can best advocate for themselves in those situations or find people that can advocate for them? So, yeah.
So I read this book. It's called, if I remember correctly, it's called Communication Skills for Women in the Workplace. I think it's called. It's a yellow book. I'm sorry. I'm just like, I have it. It's in my office, and I read I read a little bit from it every now and then. But the navigating the world as a woman in these spaces is different and unique. So a lot of times the advice that your male colleagues might provide you may not apply. It's kind of like how the whole lean in part of the conversation goes. How, I don't know if you guys know this or remember this, but there used to be a conversation around, why aren't women achieving these higher positions in management and leadership? And it's because they don't raise their voice in circles. But in reality, it's not. It's that even when women raise their voices, it is not enough because the approach is not. It's not well received. There's always a complaint of some sort. It's just, you're always either walking on eggshells, you're being too loud, or you're being too quiet, and it's a mess. So there are books out there that understand the unique experiences of being women in leadership and the fact that navigating those spaces is not the same as it would be for men, for example, or for people who are a majority in a room. And so I encourage you to look up those sources because they will help you, one, validate your experiences when you feel like you are not being heard or when you feel you are being singled out in a way. And two, obtain the strategies necessary to communicate effectively, to be able to be genuine about yourself, be able to say what you mean and do what you want to do, but in a way that's a little bit better received and, understanding the limitations of the world that we live in. That was kind of long-winded, but
No, it's great.
I would just say when you get to the point, in your career where you are in a position of power, use that power to make a difference. I was just watching an article about women on boards, and we just hit 33.5% of women of Fortune 500 boards are women. That's gone up significantly over the years. It's still not a parity, but it's getting better. The reason it's getting better is because women are getting into powerful positions and they're advocating for other women. I am the executive sponsor of the Women in NCR group, and I make sure that I am always looking out for especially the young women, in my group especially, because there aren't very many women in technology. But I think it's important, one, to advocate for yourself, but two, when you get into a position, to know that you're entrusted and really need to advocate for others. And the only way we're ever going to get parity is with more and more women coming into positions of power and making a difference for other women and other diverse people.
Great. Awesome. So another commonality between your two talks was this idea of balance and work-life balance, or whatever you might want to call it. I'm curious if you could maybe describe how that's changed throughout your career, from the start of your career to now, or how it changed perhaps from how you might have thought about it as you were sitting, if you were sitting in the audience here.
Okay. So I just, we're actually having a speaker come to our Women in NCR group. Her name is Christine Cherrick. She just published a book called Tread Loudly. And in her book, she talks about, she says the myth of having it all. She's like, in her book, I'm shattering the myth of having it all. I said to her, what do you mean by having it all? And I said, because I feel like I have it all, but it's my all. It's not, your all. And she was saying it's important that women understand that life is hard. And so these, views you see of these successful people that manage, their 5 kids and their husband and all these things, what you don't see is the challenges that they have every day. And there are little challenges and big challenges. And I think, what's important is that you have to know what is important and what's not important. Early in your career, if you choose to have kids, obviously balance is for me, it was all about, I have work and I have my kids, my husband, I don't do anything else. That's it. And I use the term, and I'd outsource things that I didn't have to do. So if they didn't add value to work or my kids, I didn't do them. If I could afford to outsource, or I could ask someone, to help me. And that's why I say, especially, younger in your career, it's hard. Oh my gosh, if you want to have kids, I can't even tell you. There were nights I cried because I'm like, how am I going to do all this? And I have an amazing husband, a good partner. So the early days are hard, but it shifts, right? As you get more senior, as the kids get older, it actually gets a lot easier, because you're not running kids around to all their activities, and they want to do their own thing. They don't really want you around, but you want to be around. So I think it gets easier. It's easy now, but I also remember how hard it was when I was young with young kids, and making sure that women that I work with, they understand it's okay to go leave work early and go see to your kid's Valentine party. Like, I didn't miss Valentine parties. In fact, I was always like a room parent, wasn't I, Lizzie? Yeah, embarrassing, but yeah. I was, and her dad was too. We were always there in the early years. But I think, I also, going back to I'm going to do it all, I was committed to my family and was willing to do whatever I needed to do to make sure that, my kids turned out well. And that meant sometimes, I wasn't going to go hang out with the guys at the bar. I was going to go home and be with my family. And you make those decisions along the way. But balance is different for everybody. It's different in different phases of your life. But just know it's not easy. Don't expect it to be easy. Nothing worth having is easy. It's always hard. So don't give up.
I would say early in your career, as you're working really, really hard or studying really, really hard and spending those 60, 80 hours studying, working, doing whatever to try to get your degrees or get that promotion, don't make your work your identity. You are more than the work that you do. And a lot of times, like Patty said, the plans change. And when that happens and it's career related and it's work related or it's education related and you have dedicated your entire identity to that, it feels like you have lost yourself. I actually have a colleague who she finished her PhD and she had poured herself entirely to her PhD, but she struggled for a couple of years to find a job. She struggled. And during that time, she felt like she didn't know what to do with herself because she had lost herself. Her entire identity was tied to her research. And she had to figure out who she was. She had to figure out the things that she liked. She had to figure out the places that she wanted to travel. She had to figure out the things that made her tick so that she could have an identity outside of a work environment. And I think that's a huge part of the balance as well. And especially if you have kids, because I hear a lot of complaints about new moms that they feel that they have lost themselves because they're either at work or taking care of children, but nothing in between. They lose themselves. They don't know who they are anymore. So in the free time that you may have, figure out yourself, figure out the things that you like to do, figure out your hobbies that are not work related. Because when there are times that work takes over your life or other parts that are important to you, like your family, really, really demand your time, you will have something to come back to. You will not lose yourself, and you won't lose your identity.
One of my favorite stories about this was I was getting very close to leaving the Air Force, and I had worked for a 4-star general who had retired. And I was at his house with his wife and him, and he was showing me around this beautiful house that they had built in Colorado Springs. It was their retirement home. It overlooked Pikes Peak. And I don't know, somehow got on the topic of, work and what he was going to do now that he was in the military. And he said, Patty, I was offered a job that paid $1 million a year, but I would have to move to Washington, D.C., so I turned it down. And I looked at him like, You did what? And I still remember him saying to me, to become a 4-star general, I had to miss a lot of my kids' events. I missed the Girl Scouts, I missed soccer games. I paid a dear price. And now I don't need more money. I want to make up for the time that I lost. That conversation for me was, again, one of those things I always remembered. because I, told myself, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to miss out on, my kids. I tried real hard. Obviously, Lizzie can probably tell you there were times I fell down, but for the most part, I didn't do that. I wasn't going to sacrifice, my family to get ahead in work, and I haven't had to do that, and I don't think you have to either. I actually think sometimes people that wrap themselves up in work, they don't excel because they don't have anything else that brings them joy. So your advice is perfect. Don't be just work.
There's time for one more question. Yep.
I was just curious. So I know that like a lot of times in both STEM fields and other fields as well, the environment of working tends to not be great when women are like on maternity leave or have health issues. I was just curious what your guys' experience was with the work environment in STEM fields with being able to either raise a family or have medical issues outside of work.
You want to answer?
I can tell you, for myself, my best promotions were when I was out on maternity leave. I swear. My first executive job that I told you about, I had just had my twins, and so I was out. I was out on maternity leave. I got to take 8 weeks off. Back then, 6 weeks was what you got, and you got 8 if you had twins or had a cesarean, I think it was. Now I think people get 12 or 16 weeks off. And my boss called me while I was on maternity leave and offered me this promotion, and I remember like, whoa, this is pretty cool. But that's because I was at a great company. And it didn't matter that I was out for 2 months. They knew I was coming back. They knew what I brought to the table. And, it really, for me, it hasn't made a difference. I know that's not true for every woman. That's why I think you really have to be careful about where you work and make sure the culture of that company kind of is what you want your life to be like. Right? Yeah. If you want to be in a place where they're supportive of working women, you want to be supportive of, military people in the reserves as an example. Look for all those things when you are considering, where you're going to go work.
And just to piggyback on that, we'll be talking tomorrow during the professional development in the matching values roundtable about how you can kind of suss out from the interview process what your values are and what the company's values are. So anyone attending tomorrow, that's a little blurb, and maybe we can come back to this question then. Unfortunately, this is the end of our session. So if you have more questions for the attendees, there'll be more time for conversation tomorrow for those of you who can make it to the professional development event tomorrow. It starts at 9 a.m. sharp, so please come between 8:30 and 8:45 for registration. There'll be some breakfast things and chatting with alum. Thank you all for coming tonight, and please join me in thanking our speakers one last time.